Bestsellers unveiled at NK News Shop. Step out in style with our top-selling apparel from the NK News Shop. Fly high with the Air Koryo t-shirt, celebrating DPRK's golden era of aviation in vintage airline chic. Explore the stars with our Nada hoodie, inspired by North Korea's answer to NASA. Or toast to tradition with our Taedonggang beer t-shirt, capturing the essence of North Korea's renowned brew. Each design is a conversation starter. Find yours at shop.nknews.org. Again, that's shop.nknews.org. Hello listeners and welcome to the NK News Podcast. I'm your host, Jacco Zwetsloot, and as you can probably hear, I'm at the tail end of a cold here. I lost my voice for a couple of days, but it's almost back to normal, so here we go. And we're recording this in the NK News podcast studio. I'm with Jeongmin Kim this morning. Jeongmin, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
You've had a busy week of podcasts. You also covered me for the long podcast last Thursday, talking all about the fallout from the martial law, the self-coup, whatever you want to call it, the dramatic events of last Tuesday evening. So here's a question to start off with, just a simple one. Who's in charge of the army right now in South Korea? I mean, we've got to put a North Korea spin in here. Who's in charge of defending South Korea from possible adventurism or provocation by North Korea?
Ironically or unironically, it's Yoon Suk-yeol.
Explain why.
Well, the journalists in South Korea since Sunday, I believe, have been pressuring the government very, very hard to answer this question. Who is the commander-in-chief? Who's the CIC?
Yeah.
And then they just went silent. They're like, oh, it's a very sensitive issue. And then Monday morning, just yesterday, the defense ministry spokesperson was asked this question. And then he said it still remains with the legal CIC role remains with the president.
Right, because he hasn't been impeached, he hasn't stood down, he hasn't been suspended, he hasn't resigned, so he remains.
So that's the problem. Although there has been a political statement and a political promise from the Prime Minister Han Duck-soo and the People Power Party leader Han Dong-hoon that...
The two Hans.
Two Hans. Will be that Yoon will be excluded from all duties.
Yeah.
He is not being excluded because first he has been clearing off a bunch of documents like resignations of cabinet ministers, cabinet members, and also he is technically still CIC. So if any North Korea contingency happens, he will be the person that the JCS will have to report to.
Okay, and the JCS, of course, the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Now that is... we kind of got ourselves into this situation because he was in control of the military, right? He announced martial law. He sent out the army to the National Assembly, to the National Election Commission.
The elite forces.
Oh, yeah, that's right. The special missions, and also to Kim Il-jun's house and studio. And now he's still in charge of the military. So
Kim Il-jun is a progressive journalist in South Korea that Yoon really hates.
And he also owns his own polling company.
I always thought there's something shady about it because it always sort of paints you in a much bad version of him compared to other polls like Gallup or Realmeter.
Right.
But you don't send military usually to pollsters, right? So that's the situation going on right now. And the latest is yesterday, the investigative authorities, there is this weird competition between authorities like prosecutors and the police going on right now, like who calls a shot first.
Yes.
And they have been talking about emergency arrest of the president is possible, like starting morning they started saying that, and then in mid-afternoon I believe the 공수처, the Office of the Corruption for High-Level Officials, and also the Justice Ministry, they confirmed that Yoon is banned from leaving the country.
Okay, but he hasn't been arrested yet.
No, they're considering it.
Okay, all right. So he's in charge of the military. We know that the former defense minister has resigned, and one of the stories that's come out is that drone that went to Pyongyang with the leaflets, that might have been South Korean government after all, right?
It reportedly was South Korea, according to the leaks that started just piling up right after a defense minister not only resigned but got arrested, emergency arrest. And there are leaks saying that it was Kim Yong-hyun, the ex-defense minister's order to actually send the drones to North Korea. Remember the time that South Korean government kept saying that it's not worth responding to the question when Chad asked it to the president? Actually, it turns out Chad was the last person ever
to ask
possibly to ask
President
Yoon
Yoon a question at a press conference. Goodness me. Wow. Okay, that's have to get that framed or something, that moment.
And there is a different leak, which is like more controversial because there has been some pushback from the JCS that the defense minister also allegedly ordered something similar to something that sounded like considering an actual preemptive strike against a balloon launch, North Korean balloon launch origin. This is more controversial, though.
So this is part of a broader narrative that President Yoon and his defense minister might have been starting something with North Korea in order to spark a situation that would make a pretext for imposing martial law.
Well, so far it's just correlation. I'm not sure if the causality has been proven so far, but I think what has been proven is that the defense minister, who was a key man of the martial law declaration and the implementation, and Yoon had a very particular worldview regarding North Korea.
Right. Wow. And if that narrative is correct, then that would be basically another bukpung like they had 25 years ago to try something with North Korea in order to bring benefits to the regime in charge in South Korea.
Right, and justify the martial law.
Now, we've also seen some stories and some video footage of soldiers who have talked about their experience in the raid on the National Assembly and what that did to them and what that did to morale. Now, what are we hearing about that?
There are two things. One is the 707 Special Mission Commander has done a press conference leaving the unit. We almost never see this. There is whole controversy on whether or not this was appropriate, but that's a separate issue.
Yes.
And there are a bunch of leaks from the soldiers who actually went to the National Assembly and other places on the night of, right? But and it seems like the gist is, first, the morale is down right now because many of them did not know that the target was civilians and the lawmakers. Many of them thought it was a North Korea-related situation because of the text messages they allegedly got earlier that day.
And the word terror was also specifically mentioned. So North Korea-related, terror-related, this is what they thought they were going into when they were getting on the helicopters.
Exactly. There were two main special operations sort of units that were involved. One is the anti-terrorism, very elite force. It's very difficult to nurture them, right? And the other guys are people who are, simply put, supposed to be trained to assassinate Kim Jong-un, for instance, in contingency.
Okay. Right.
And then they were trained for all of these things, and then in the last minute, they hear that their goal is to make sure that there are less than 150 lawmakers at the National Assembly, according to reports. We cannot verify this
according
independently.
to what it's Colonel Kim Won-tae, have I got his name? Or Kim Hyun-tae.
Right, and other soldiers as
and
well.
Other soldiers. Because, again, the narrative here being that out of 300 lawmakers, if more than 150 were there, if a majority were there to vote down the martial law imposition, then it would be lifted. And so their orders were, make sure that we don't get that majority into the National Assembly.
Right.
Okay, so that's going to hurt morale, but it may also hurt readiness and whether soldiers are confident in the orders that they're receiving from above are legal and sensible and have been rationally thought through.
Right. Professor Daniel Pinkston made an awesome point about the chain of command issue as well, going back to our initial topic, the CIC Commander-in-Chief.
Right.
Commander-in-Chief is still Yoon.
Yes.
The acting defense minister, the JCS chief, and Special Forces commander who is suspended right now.
Yep.
They all vowed that if there is anything related to potential second martial law instruction from Yoon, they will disobey it. Okay, let's say that there's no second martial law.
Right.
But still saying that they will disobey their CIC, it sort of tarnishes the whole authority of the CIC. And what if something happens related to North Korea and they get the instruction?
Yes.
They will be like, they will have a bit of doubt in their mind, and it might slow people down, right?
Yes, so this does put South Korea into a precarious situation in terms of its national defense, which now, let's talk about North Korea. North Korea hasn't said much in their media, in their state media, about what's going on in South Korea, have they? And that usually they're quick to seize upon an opportunity to point to a weakness. What are they doing here?
So it looks like the martial law aspect of all of this might be making North Korea calculate that it might not be a good idea to tell their citizens just yet about this in detail. So when you look at Park Geun-hye impeachment era, like she didn't get impeached immediately, right? Like it took months of consideration. But then Rodong was very quick to tell the North Korean people that this is going on. Park might get impeached and people are protesting. Right now in Rodong, there are some reports with photos of people wanting Yoon to get impeached, but that continued for weeks, even before the martial law, right? But they're not mentioning the martial law.
Nor are they mentioning the fact that it was citizens who went out there to put their bodies on the line, as it were, to clash with police and the military to help to stop this, right? Because that's not a narrative that would be helpful to the North Korean government.
Exactly. And also how the institution, like their version of would be Supreme People's Assembly, the SPA, in South Korea, it's National Assembly. The institution actually worked, not just DP, but alongside some PPP members. The opposition and the ruling sort of stood together to take this down, the order of the Supreme Commander.
Yeah.
I don't think this is something North Korea might be, excited to tell their people about.
No. And now I imagine that at the same time, across the demilitarized zone, there's a state of heightened alert there. Are we seeing anything from North Korea, any movements?
The JCS has been doing a bit of briefing now and then, and they keep saying that there has been no, particular movements going on at the border, although technically a lot of things have been going on at the border anyways, with the, wall being set up and the loudspeakers and everything. But yeah, I didn't hear any news about any particular movements.
And have you heard any news in the last week? Because it's literally a week today since the whole drama kicked off here in South Korea. Have you heard any news about new trash balloons or new leaflets from North Korea or new messaging on the loudspeakers, anything like that?
Nothing.
Really? So that's
it's fascinating.
It is fascinating because it seems unusual. North Korea never never fails to take advantage of a good crisis.
Right. I think two things. One is ultimately this will be a propaganda material on a silver platter when they decide it's the right timing. But second, because Yoon is still technically CIC.
Yes.
And also second, he mentioned North Korea threat in the martial law decree and announcement.
Right.
I don't think they want to help Yoon justify the decision at the time with further movements.
Look, in our remaining minutes, let's drill down on that a little bit. Why did Yoon bring up this element of a North Korea threat, of anti-state elements in South Korea?
So partly the worldview thing that I mentioned earlier might explain it, but that's not enough to, explain why as extreme as martial law, right? But if you look at the Constitution and, the legality of it, which is a controversy right now, was it legal to, issue this martial law? It looks like just citing the budget cuts from the opposition party and the political opposition and the medical strike, it would have been not enough for Yoon to justify something as extreme as emergency martial law, which is different from usual martial law.
Right, it has to be a security crisis, a time of war, or something like a time of war.
Exactly. That's why I think he included the North Korea aspect into it to sort of, line of defense in case this, tanks.
But he has also said that, has he not said that, or accused Lee Jae-myung of being, the leader of the opposition party, of being an agent of North Korea?
Well, he didn't exactly say it in those terms. He would, rather than pro-North forces, I think in Yoon's mind, he, Lee Jae-myung and the opposition party might be anti-state forces.
Okay.
But anti-state forces was also in the announcement.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But I'm just wondering, who are the Jongbuk right now? These are the pro-North Korea forces. Who are the specific targets of that?
So, I don't know.
Okay.
It's very unclear. But if I channel, Yoon's mind, try to think from his position, his point of view, I think seeing this comes after a lot of domestic context, like Itaewon crowd crushed. After that, there was whole lot of protests against the government, medical strikes and the labor union strikes, all these sort of civilian voices against the government. From Yoon's point of view and defense minister's point of view, these sort of might have counted as, sign of potential insurrection or riot, which in South Korean traditional way of thinking might be linked to pro-North forces.
Ah, yes.
And who knows, there might have been some North Korea spies or whatnot. They always have been sort of here and there in the country. That is, that's a fact.
Exactly. Let's assume that there are always going to be some North Korean spies and agents here trying to foment rebellion and stir up insurrection, and that they're probably in there amongst it all. There may have been some at the National Assembly, but there's certainly not enough to turn the tide, to sort of direct South Korean people in a direction that they're not already going.
So I think why Yoon did the martial law was it's a big risk and a big bet. But through martial law and raiding the election committee building, I think he wanted to find a hard evidence to show that pro-North forces or North Korea spies were involved in some of the legislative procedures like the general election. I think maybe that was a reason why he did something as risky as that, because he thought there would be benefit from it.
Right.
Like finding the evidence that they were involved.
Yeah, which, despite having gone to the National Election Commission well before the soldiers and the helicopters arrived at the National Assembly, I don't know if they got anything. I haven't heard of them actually finding any evidence of
I saw
tampering.
a Tandok, an exclusive report this morning, showing CCTV footages of the soldiers arriving at the NEC, the election committee building, and moving around. There were 방첩사령부, the defense intelligence, counterintelligence, people who were shown or reportedly sort of just strolling around and not really like running or trying to do something. They were not doing a very, enthusiastic and passionate job to actually follow the instructions, but that's just one report.
Fascinating. Okay, well, we keep an eye on this. Thank you once again for coming back on the show, Jeongmin Kim.
Thanks for having me.
In the intricate world of Korean affairs, tailored intelligence makes all the difference. Korea Risk Group's consulting services offer specialized, actionable intelligence designed to guide your Korea-related decisions. We provide bespoke consulting services that cater to your unique challenges and goals. From policy analysis to market entry strategies, we bring clarity to complexity. Transform uncertainty into opportunity and visit KoreaPro.com Solutions today. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of our podcast episode for today. Our thanks go to Brian Betts and Alana Hill for facilitating this episode, and to our post-recording producer genius Gabby Magnuson, who cuts out all the extraneous noises, awkward silences, bodily functions, and fixes the audio levels. Thank you, and listen again next time.